Hey, Airy friends. I hope you're doing okay-ish. It's a really difficult time to be asking someone, how are you doing? Because we're all kind of in our own universes and in our own worlds, kind of trying to figure things out. I feel like up until this week, I was sort of doing okay. I was kind of trying to keep my spirits up, but somehow at the beginning of this week, I just kind of started feeling really off. And then that webinar happened, and that just kind of like started another storm in my head about like what's going to happen, not just with the AREs, but just kind of world in general. And these numbers are kind of going crazy, and I wonder many things. And I feel like I'm just now kind of starting to get overwhelmed and feeling unsafe generally. Um, so I kind of felt like I got to get something out. I got to start working and really dig myself into something to keep sanity. So for today, I decided to help people that were just starting to study before this thing happened or are in the middle of studying for practice management. And that's the exam that I kind of want to talk about today and share with you something that I've done. So I'm recording this on Zoom, and I'm going to share a screen now. So bear with me. Okay, and my cat wants to jump on my lap, I think. Um, okay, so this, I hope, is something that you're familiar with. This is the NCARB ARE handbook, and I kind of edited some pages and I left some pages out because I kind of want to show you what you need to pay attention to. But before we dive into that, I kind of want to share with you something that I made. So this exam is kind of like, it is, a lot of people group it with project management and construction and evaluation. And that is something that definitely makes sense. That's what I ended up doing. And I can tell you, studying for this exam was so helpful for project management and CE. And in fact, I think for this test and PA, I studied more than for any other exam because I figured this exam is the smallest exam of all. So it is a really good opportunity to go beyond what the NCARB handbook tells you and kind of like use the smallness of the test to go beyond and start investing in PJM and CE because it will help you so much later. So what I have here on the screen is kind of how I broke down the exam into 4 components, and they all kind of correspond to how NCARB breaks them down, but I kind of describe them a little differently. So what is practice management exam about? It kind of has these 4 components. First is setting up a company components. So here you will learn a bunch of jargon, a bunch of differences between sole proprietorship, LLC, LLP, S Corp, C Corp, and all that. That's going to be pretty important for this test. Then you're going to have a large chunk of the test dedicated to financials of the company. And this, for somebody who doesn't have any business or accounting background, such as me, this is going to be a challenge. And the more time you invest in this category, the better off you will be with project management, because within the project management exam, you're going to have topics that are going to be dealing with how to manage a project financially. And how you manage a project financially is going to certainly impact how you manage company financially. So those two are very intertwined. So I would certainly encourage you to dig really deep into AHPP book on and like to read everything that it says about financials. Then you're going to have some topics that are going to be explaining how to run a company day to day, which is going to be like how to organize a team, how to navigate a team, and how to like organize what team works on what. And then another one is going to be how to deliver a service without getting your company in trouble, which is going to be about risk management, about knowing contracts, about evaluating services, and just generally understanding what is good for your company and what's not. And then here, I kind of like break down the entire prep process into 7 steps. And I personally did not follow this sequence, but that's just because at the time I didn't know better. I kind of developed this sequence much later on in PA and PPD, but it certainly applies for every exam essentially. So the way you want to start prepping for PCM or any exam actually is to study the darn handbook. And by handbook, I mean the NCARB ARE handbook. That, as simple as it is, that handbook just has everything that you need to know about every exam. So really take some time and go over it. And that is something that I'm going to be doing in this video just to show you what can work for you. I mean, it worked for me. So after you're done with that, then do step 2, which is bird's eye view, just to gain an understanding of how much you need to know, how much stuff you need to cover to prepare for the test. And good resources for that are going to be Ballast and Pluralsight and so on. Like they're more. What I did is like I would go through the handbook, and then I would go through one chapter of Ballast and then see, oh, this is a topic on how to run a company. And then I would go and read everything about that and then come back and then read some basic information and then like trickle down into the deep stuff. But I figured that's not really the best way of doing it. I think it's best to at first get a general broad view of the entire thing. And then step 3, take practice questions and exam, just to measure your current temperature after doing the step 2, because that's gonna help you understand how much you got and what you still need to do. And please take these practice questions essentially as studying tool. They're not there to really gauge your knowledge of anything really. And a lot of times I bet you're going to be frustrated because when you take some practice questions on financials in Ballast, they may not be related necessarily to financials. So just be very relaxed about these. And then I would encourage you to dig really deep into AHPP, which is Architectural Handbook of Professional Practice. It is really the Bible for the ProPrac exams. Multiple times, I kind of use this analogy of if you want to learn Italian cooking, you go to an Italian grandma and learn from her. And a lot of times what she says, it's kind of going to be redundant and dry and repetitive and blah, blah, blah. But she's there to help you and learn from her because she has all the knowledge that you need. That's kind of how I treated AHPP. And the important thing is to keep checking the handbook to confirm you're covering the right topics. And I'm going to show you in this video how to do that. After you're done digging deep, then you repeat the step 3, which is go over the practice questions and exams again and see how much you have improved. And if you feel like you got some holes, don't worry at all. Just take your time to fill them and kind of pat yourself on the shoulder for all the other things that you did right. And then relax, know it in your bones that it's gonna be okay, one way or another, right? So let's zoom in here. So in the rest of this video, I kind of want to show you how I would, if I could go back to practice management, how I would approach this. And right now I have 5 exams and 4 fails in my bag. So let's say I'm pretty experienced in this. And practice management, as I said earlier, is a test that I studied very, very, very hard for, but it paid off later. So the thing is, when you read the handbook, like, you have to start looking for keywords. And this skill, looking for keywords, is something that is going to be super, super important to develop. And you can do that by taking practice questions and by just reading these things as if you were, almost as if you were a lawyer, and put your lawyer hat on and start searching for trigger words, keywords. And then the way I like to do it is I highlight them and then I list them on the side. And that essentially creates almost a to-do list. And then as you start studying and you come back to it, you can kind of see where you're at. So in this PDF that I'm going to leave on my website, I created essentially a to-do list for every of these sections. So this is a quick breakdown of how the NCARB handbook does it. And you can see that I skipped some parts just for the sake of brevity, but you can see what I'm doing here, highlighting the keywords and then listing them. So after step 4, which is going deep into the resources, you are coming back to this page and seeing, okay, I covered staffing, boom, I can check that. I covered standard of care, boom, I can move on. And this is really, really important to be going back and forth between the handbook and your studying, because I mean, it happened to me on PA that I just did not pay enough attention to, I just simply didn't pay enough attention to what was shown in the handbook. And the handbook said it like very clear, do this, you have to cover this and this. And I just didn't do it. And yeah, I came to the test and they were things that I was shocked to see. But then when I studied for the retake and checked again the handbook, it was very, very much black and white. Yeah, cover this, and I didn't. So this is a really, really good practice to get yourself into and to kind of like develop these lists. So yeah, for each of these sections, I created a list, and I don't necessarily want to go deep into each of these. I mean, I can if you need me to, let me know. But essentially, as you can see, I created lists. And then at the end, you have these references. And as I said, this AHPP book is, yeah, Yoda of everything professional practice related. And this book can be intimidating, but please, please don't be intimidated by it. Just break it down. And after I go through these references, I will provide you a suggestion how to do it. So yeah, that's the main book. And then these other resources you can find online. And these three here are pretty quick. But then these two contracts are super duper important. Again, to kind of repeat what I said earlier, PCM being the shortest exam gives you an opportunity to actually go beyond the scope of PCM, and to add A201 to this list would be really, really good, because A201 and B101 are really, really major contracts for all professional practice. So the more time you invest really nailing those down, the better off you will be. Now, when it comes to contracts, that also requires a special skill, and a skill that you probably won't have right away. I didn't have it. Many other people didn't have it. But give yourself time and don't rush it. The way you study contracts best is to try to think of scenarios. I know Shift Harden lectures were extremely valuable for me, because you have a guy who teaches a class who happens to be a construction attorney, and he just kind of like shares his experience and cases that he found himself in, and kind of explains how they evolved and how they got resolved. But generally, when it comes to studying contracts, pretty much the best way is to think of situations. And because like when you read the contract article, it's super abstract and broad, but you really need to kind of put it in the context. And you can do that also by doing practice questions. But probably more than anything is by talking to other people and seeing, like, asking them, what does this mean? What do you think this means? And there's going to be a lot of terminology there that is going to be completely new, that you are going to be overwhelmed by. But don't fall into the trap of thinking, oh, I don't understand it, therefore I'm just not going to worry about it. That's just something that you can't do. You really have to have a really solid understanding of contracts, and think of it as a challenge. When I started, I was obviously super overwhelmed, and I failed the first two exams that I took. I took project management and construction and evaluation, and I failed them both. And on both those exams, I failed stuff that was related to contracts because I just wasn't ready. I didn't have a good understanding of terminology, of relationships, and just by the amount of time that I just spent talking about it, you can understand how important this is. So yeah, contracts are important. And then to kind of wrap it up, I want to come back to AHPP. And essentially, between all three exams, I'm pretty sure that I read this book cover to cover. And I know some people who are, they are in minority, will say, I was able to pass all three exams without even looking at this book. I honestly have no idea how that was done. I personally don't think I could do that. But here in this PDF, what I did is I highlighted what I thought really covered at least one section. And when I say at least, by that I mean it covers that section, but it also covers more than just that. So yeah, as you can see, I kind of broke it down into 4 different colors. So without going too deep into this right now, and I'm happy to, if you'd like me to do that, I kind of highlighted articles that I thought were really good for me, just kind of like providing another way of doing this. And because I know that Pluralsight, and there is this other resource that I will probably butcher, like NermerWrite, that they also provided their own versions of study guides for this particular book. But I mean, I know that we all kind of have our own troubles, our own problems that we're dealing with in everyday life, but don't take this as something that you are kind of just looking to be done with, or don't be cutting corners with it. This is pretty important stuff. This is about your professional competence, and this is not something that you should be rushing through, something that you should just kind of like find an easy way out, be looking for shortcuts and such. I mean, shortcuts are good for revising, or when it comes to things that you just need to remind yourself of. But when it comes to like really digging deep and understanding these things, like there's no replacement for hard work, I think. So really, the more time you put into these, like it will pay off. One thing that I forgot to mention is, as clueless as I was about contracts and failing 2 exams because I didn't know contracts, right now I feel pretty confident about contracts. So I turned something that was super intimidating and something that I was very bad at, essentially, I turned it into something that I feel pretty good about. I wouldn't necessarily go that far and brag that I know I would know every single question, but I'm pretty sure that I could have a solid suggestion on how to solve anything related to AIA contracts. Same with financial stuff. I would also certainly encourage you to talk to not only your peers, but also people from your company or generally from work. I approached our accountant and in my company, and I said, hey Margie, in this book that I'm studying from, they're kind of giving these definitions and things that don't necessarily, they're just words to me. I don't know what they mean by these ratios and stuff. And she really helped me to, by just putting numbers behind these things and just running through a simple set of problems, I was really able to kind of start. I mean, obviously not everything became super crystal clear after talking to an accountant, but she really helped me get that initial, by just giving me the initial push, just by putting the numbers behind these terms. That was plenty helpful, and I would certainly encourage you to talk to not only your accountant, but also to your HR, to some practice leaders, president, just kind of like ask them and see what they say about these things. And obviously, it kind of goes without saying, they're going to be pretty impressed that you are being proactive, not only about your career, but about practice in general. So they will kind of start seeing you differently, I guess. So, I mean, that's certainly something that can work for your advantage. So yeah, I think that's all I got for today. It was a pretty kind of broad, overarching, going pretty fast, go through the practice management requirements. But if there's anything that you would like me to go more in depth, any topic about this, I'm more than happy to. And I really hope that this helps you stay on track. And even if you kind of go off the track, this can kind of help you come back and start picking up the threads. So yeah, I hope you're okay, and it will be okay at the end, one way or another. As long as we remain healthy, it will be all good, right? Okay, so I think that's it. As I said, take care and it'll be all good. Bye.